On today's episode, a peaceful, sun-drenched summer vacation on a remote compound community with friends. What could possibly go wrong? We serve up our highly anticipated review of Ari Aster's eerie 2019 folk horror film, Midsommar. Brace for anxiety, this is Chocolate Chip Horror. Hello, monsters, minions, and masters of the macabre, and welcome to Chocolate Chip Horror, the only podcast with ooey gooey horror goodness in every bite. I'm the Wolfman himself, Anthony, and as always, I'm joined by my wife, Andrea, the Queen of Harpies. On this podcast, we review and nerd out about horror films and snack on delicious treats. Andrea, our treat of choice for today.
Welcome to Harga, where the sun never sets and the spreads are deceptively divine. To pair with Ari Aster's Midsummer Nightmare, we created the ultimate pagan feast. Crisp apples, cubed sharp cheddar and Gouda cheese, Swedish-style crisp bread, blackberry preserves, and a smooth herb dip, all adorned with fresh rosemary, lavender, and vibrant blossoms. It's light, crisp, and beautifully balanced, a feast fit for a May Queen. No hallucinogenic tea required.
That was good. I got to be honest, I love a good fruit and cheese tray. You got your apples, you got your cheeses, some nice exotic crackers. You pair that with your favorite white wine. Like, that's a classy dish right there.
Mm-hmm.
And the tray complements the movie quite well because it's all beautifully laid out. It's inviting, aesthetically pleasing to the eye, and it perfectly hides the fact that if you overindulge on apple slices, grapes, cheese, whatever you got there, you're going to have difficult time in the bathroom. So you don't see that right away, but it creeps up on you. So the pictures, as always, are absolutely gorgeous. You're a demon with those food photography skills. Guys, if you want to see them and get some inspiration for your own fruit and cheese plate, make sure to head over to the Chocolate Chip Horror Substack page. All right. So we got our snacks, beautiful. I love the lavender on the side of it. Everything just looks gorgeous. So let's jump right into this review. As a reminder to our listeners, our reviews are thick with spoilers. So if you don't want us to ruin it for you, here's where you want to stop this episode so you can go check it out. But if you're ready, here's a quick and dirty synopsis. Well, I don't know how quick it is because...
I mean, there's a lot to unpack with Midsommar.
Yeah. So I'll do my best to keep the plot quick before we break into it. So 2019's Midsommar stars Florence Pugh, who we've seen in many things. Black Widow from 2021, 2023's Oppenheimer, Dune Part 2, and Thunderbolts in 2024 and 2025 respectively. And she'll be in Dune Part 3 and the Avengers Doomsday later this year. She's working out.
I mean, she's super talented.
She really is.
I'm really happy that she's doing so well.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see her in more things, like especially things that are kind of outside of her realm. Like, she hasn't done anything like this before. When I saw that she was going to be in Doomsday, I was like, oh, that's going to be fun. I can't wait to see how she, reprises that role as Black Widow in that film. So in this film, she plays Dani, a college student who's currently dating Christian, played by Jack Rayner. You'll remember him. He was just in Lee Cronin's The Mummy earlier this year. And so the two of them have a rather strained relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And while Dani's desperately clinging to this relationship, Christian, on the other hand, he's honestly on the fence about the whole thing. He doesn't know if he should stay in it or not. And he's talking about this with his friends. And while he's talking about it with them, Dani calls him up to tell him through scream crying that her whole family has just been killed. Her sister, her mother, and her father have all been killed. So she's obviously hysterical. And he decides, I guess, in that moment that he's going to stay with her. I mean, he can't possibly break up with her now. You know what I mean? Like, this is, if he was seriously thinking about it, like if his mind had been made up, this would not be the time to say, you know what, I think we're done. Like, he's choosing to stay with her. And we'll break into some of that just a little bit. But after she experiences this horrible tragedy, and that obviously ruins any chances of Christian seriously breaking things off with her, later on, she's still mourning about this, but her school has given her a little bit of a break,
Mm-hmm.
so she's kind of just chilling. And so Christian decides he's going to go to a party. She says, I'll go with you. And while they're attending the party, she finds out that Christian is planning to fly to Sweden in like the next 2 weeks to celebrate their midsummer celebration along with like 3 of his close friends, Josh, Mark, and Pele, played by William Jackson Harper, Will Poulter, and Wilhelm Blomgren, respectively. After the party, she brings it up because she's like, what was that about? Like, you didn't tell me you wanted to go.
And it's not just that he wanted to go. This trip was going to be for a month and a half.
Right.
And this is something they had been planning for several months.
Yeah, he already has a ticket. So he's going. And that's not what he said at the party. He was like, we were definitely talking about going, but he's going. He already bought the plane ticket. And so they get into this discussion about it. And she starts to get really worked up because he gets on the defensive quick. He's like, you know what? Maybe I should just leave, whatever. Like, I'm sorry. Like, what do you want from me? So they get into it. And in this scene, we can see that she's definitely very, like, she's very anxious in this situation. She's humbling herself to him and trying to apologize profusely for getting so worked up.
Even though she didn't do anything wrong.
Right. She didn't do anything wrong, but she can tell that he's aggravated, like completely irritated about the situation. So in an effort to calm her down and to save face for essentially lying to her about it by omission, he just invites her to go on the trip with them. And he has to explain it to his friends. And he kind of sort of lies to them about it too. He's like, just so you know, I invited Dani to come, but she's not going to come. And one of his friends, Josh, played by William Jackson Harper, he's like, she doesn't want to come? And Christian kind of like skirts around the question. He's like, I invited her and she accepted, but she's not coming. Sir, that doesn't make any sense.
It makes literally no sense.
Is she or is she not coming? And then before she, like 2 seconds before she walks in the door, he's like, by the way, it was your guys' idea and you were cool with it. Like just springing this on me at the last minute, like nobody else's feelings or thoughts were brought into, consideration during this whole thing. He's just like, I need this to work and you guys have to do this for me. So
there's something that I noticed about that scene that I don't want to jump into it just yet because I know you're still breaking down the synopsis.
No, that's okay. Like I told you guys, this synopsis is not quick and dirty like I said it was going to be. Like there's so many pieces to this entire film. So, but essentially, like she finds her way into this trip with them. And honestly, the only person that's really excited about her going is Pele. And so the 5 of them go on this trip. And the way that he explains it to her when he asks her or invites her to go on the trip, he basically says, well, I wanted to surprise you. Now, my whole thing with that was, but you only bought 1 ticket, which means you have to buy another one. If it was supposed to be a surprise, wouldn't you have bought the second ticket the same time you bought the first one? Like, that's how surprises work. Like, how did you, and it didn't come up, which kind of aggravated me because that's the first question I would have asked. I would have been like, oh, so where's my ticket? But she didn't ask. So anyway, she's on the plane with them and she's still clearly going through some very emotional issues. She's in the plane bathroom crying. Like, she's not okay. This is not the time for her to be going on a trip with them. She's literally going because she doesn't want Christian to leave her behind.
And going on a trip, especially with people that she's not even particularly close with, and she knows that her relationship is not in the best shape to begin with. But, like, what is she going to do if she doesn't go?
Right. She'll be there all by herself, and who knows what will happen then. I imagine at some point she would have just assumed he's going to go there, find somebody else, dump me, and I'll never see him again. Like, so, yeah, she goes because she definitely wants to be with him, but I feel like she goes sort of to make sure that that doesn't happen. Like, I don't want him to leave and then I end up with no boyfriend. So anyway, they arrive in Sweden and they eventually get to Harga, which is in a remote part of Sweden. And they're actually like happily greeted and welcomed by all of Pele's friends and his family. And they all live in this remote community and they practice different Swedish traditions. This Midsommar is one of those Swedish traditions. So as the 5 students settle in and they start taking part in these Harga customs and ways of life, they start to get numerous signs that make them realize just how far from home they are and even how further from safety they are. And the idea of safely leaving becomes less and less of an option. That's all I'm going to give you. That was a pretty long synopsis, but essentially that's the backdrop. If you want to check the film out, at the time of this recording, Midsommar's available to stream on HBO Max, Hulu, Amazon Prime. You can even get it on Apple TV. It's obviously been out for a while, so you shouldn't have any problems finding it. And I would definitely suggest that you check it out. Now, we've been looking forward to this review since we started this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been one of my all-time favorite horror movies for like the last 7 years. I always enjoy rewatching it. And every time we do, we find new things out.
Yeah.
Like when we watch it, we actually find more messages, more hidden things in the film. And I love that about this film, because one of the things I love more than anything is that as terrifying and unsettling as it is, it's actually entirely shot during the day, like almost entirely shot during the day.
Yeah.
And that just makes for this very strange feeling. You're like, how are these things happening in broad daylight?
And I mean, it's so beautiful.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It makes me want to go to Sweden. Now, I might need to second guess that decision, having seen this entire film. But just from a scenery point of view, like, it's gorgeous. There's beautiful trees everywhere, flowers. It looks like a really chill place to be. Now, this film, it gets compared to The Wicker Man a lot. I feel like it's a pretty easy comparison to make. There are like really similar aspects to both films. But I think personally that there are pretty clear differences as well. And that's why I'm always reluctant to agree with that idea that, oh, this is kind of just like the modern version of The Wicker Man. It's like, no.
Like, not exactly.
I would not say that. I would say, obviously, that this film was probably influenced by The Wicker Man. I'm fine to say that. But to say that this is basically a retelling or a remake of The Wicker Man in modern times where they just changed a couple of things, no, it's not that. For instance, like if we're talking about the original Wicker Man, they came out in 1973. The main character, the sergeant played by Edward Woodward, he was not at all interested in the traditions or customs of the cult. He didn't care anything about that. His only curiosity was finding the lost girl. So when he came to the island, he already was like hot under the collar because he was assuming something happened to this girl and it's his job to figure out what happened to that girl. And people are not cooperating because he's from mainland, so he's not part of their group.
Right. So they don't really have to listen to him.
They don't have to listen to him. They don't have to give him any sort of help or assistance. They don't even have to put him up for the night. You know what I'm saying?
It also doesn't help that he's kind of a jerk the entire movie.
Yeah.
So why would anybody want to go out of their way to help him?
Like, he goes over there pushing his weight around. Like, just so you know, I'm with the law. You're going to tell me what is happening here. I'm here to find a girl and you're going to assist me. So, like, right off the bat, he's not really interested in anything that they're doing. There's no real curiosity other than, I need to find this girl. You're going to help me. And that's different from Midsommar because all those students, they were actually eager to be there for different reasons. Everybody had a different reason for wanting to be there, but they weren't coming there with any sort of aggression or anything like that. They just wanted to be a part of it. So, I mean, that's one major difference. And then in the original, when he discovers that everyone's practicing Celtic paganism, he makes it very clear to the people he doesn't approve of that.
Right, because he's a Christian.
Right, he's happy with his Christianity. And once they switched over to Celtic paganism, all the Christians, they fled back to the mainland. So this is how we're doing things here, and everyone is happy here. But he was not at all pleased with their choice of religion. He didn't like the things that they were teaching the children, any of that stuff. In Midsommar, Dani's really the only one who's convinced rather early on that something is wrong. Nobody else has a problem. Obviously, Paley doesn't have a problem because he's from there. Christian doesn't have a problem because he's just, I'm not sure what to say about Christian. Christian is a really interesting character because I don't think he has any strong feelings about anything. No, he doesn't. And that was actually one of the things that I wanted to point out about him is that I feel like not just in his relationship.
Right, not just with Dani.
Right, but just in life in general, he he's not the best at like committing or making decisions.
Right.
And we found out later on in the film, he's not even sure what he wants to do his thesis on.
Mm-hmm.
And like, he just doesn't have a whole lot of commitment when it comes to making a decision. And his relationship is a like direct reflection of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, Josh just wants to get his A. He is very committed to his academic pursuits.
Right. And he's already done so much work to begin with.
Right. He's done work. He's done research.
Mm-hmm.
He understands their language. Not all of it, but I mean, like he knows the lingo. They're not impressed by that.
No.
Like they don't actually find it impressive. When you go to another country, sometimes when you start speaking their language and you're making it clear that you're trying to learn it, they appreciate that. You're trying to communicate. The Harga don't care about that.
And I think also with Josh, it's not necessarily that he was so excited and wanted to know because he was respectful of the culture. Like, he actually was sort of disrespectful.
He was.
Because he made a spectacle of it.
Right. Like he was, in his mind, he was trying to get this grade, but in their mind, he doesn't necessarily respect the culture.
Mm-hmm.
He just wants to, I guess, make it like publicly known how the things are done here. And that's definitely not something that they want. They like to have everything secret on that island. So giving him any sort of information with intent that he's going to write this paper and this thesis and bring it back to the States and everything, like, that's not something that they'll be interested in. And then you've got Mark, played by Will Poulter, and he just wants to bang girls. Like, he doesn't care about anything else. He wants to do drugs and girls. Like, that's all he cares about. So in The Wicker Man, they do use deception to get the sergeant to come to the island. The whole process was to get him there. He thought he was going there to find a lost girl, but really he was going there to be sacrificed. In Midsommar, the deception happens once the students get there, not before.
Well, actually, I think that some deception did happen prior to their arrival.
Are you referring to Pele and what he did or did not tell them?
Yes, but also the whole Christian and Maya,
Okay.
that setup, because Christian found out when he sat down with Siv that, oh, Maya actually saw a picture of you before you ever got here. That's how we know that she really wanted you to be the one to impregnate her.
Right. And the only way that she would have seen that picture is if Pele sent it to them.
Exactly.
And that he didn't tell them he did that. So, okay, there was, in fact, a bit of deception. I guess the reason why I had said originally that I didn't feel like there was any real deception before they got there is because, for the most part, Pele's pretty honest with them. He has a way of like answering their questions without really answering them. Like, he doesn't go directly into them, but he doesn't actually lie. He just simply tells them just enough to satisfy them and nothing more. So it is lying via omission, but he doesn't make up any stories. He tells them exactly how it is. Like, when they asked, once the elders get to a certain age, what happens? And he just makes that cut across his neck like they die. He didn't have to say, oh, they jump off a cliff. We're going to see it tomorrow. He just said they die. And that was enough to satisfy them. And that was all he needed to say. When they asked what the Etterstupa was, which is the cliff jumping, he said, it's hard to explain. You'll get a better sense of it tomorrow. And I mean, that wasn't a lie. Imagine trying to explain to somebody, well, when older people get to a certain age in this community, they give their lives. And in tradition with how we do things here, we have a cliff, they jump off of it to their death. And if they don't die immediately when they hit the ground, we use a hammer and smash their face. Like,
I don't know. You did a pretty good job of explaining it.
Yeah, but I mean, how many more questions would you actually have after that? You know what I mean? It wouldn't have been a very simple, succinct explanation. And of course, if he had gone into all that, they'd have been like, I want to go. I mean, like, we don't want to be here for that. So yeah, there was deception, but I feel like Pele was extremely manipulative in the way that he gave them information about what goes on there, why they're going there. And I mean, yeah, we know that he was interested in Dani. And we also know that Maya was interested in Christian. Now, whether he knew for a fact Christian was going to be sacrificed, which does happen in the film, or not, maybe he did not know that.
I think that he was fine with any of his friends being sacrificed except for Dani.
Right.
So I think that he took them there knowing that there was a very high chance that they probably would not be coming home.
Right. And
Especially because when they got to the commune, it was expressed that, "Oh, Pele, he has a really good judge of character, and he's this and he's that. We really love him, and
very intuitive.
he's very intuitive." So I think that he knew that there was no way, especially Mark. Please, there was no way Mark was ever gonna make it back.
No, absolutely not.
Speaking of Pele's deceit, I think that he would say things and then his friends would think that he was joking, but he was telling them the truth. Like when
Mhm.
they were the very beginning of the film, when they were all sitting at the restaurant and Christian was kind of lamenting over his relationship with Dani, and Pele goes, "Oh, well, don't forget all the Swedish women you can impregnate when
Yeah.
we go on our trip."
If I remember the scene correctly, the waitress came over and she got the tip and he was like, "That's for you." And then she walked away and he kind of looked at her like, "Wow, she's cute." And Mark picked up on it. He was
Mhm.
like, "See that? You could be getting that girl pregnant right now." Like he knows that Christian is like only a few steps away from saying goodbye to Dani. And that night when they were at the restaurant, it might have been the night that he finally was able to make that decision. I mean, when we meet him for the first time, he says, like, what if I do it and I can't get her back? Like, he is actually considering breaking up with her. And that's when Mark was like, you don't want her back. He's like, what if maybe I do, man. So if she hadn't called about this tragedy that just happened, they may have, at the very least, Mark may have been able to get through to him like, look, get off the fence about this. You don't want to be with her. Make the decision now, and then we can go to Sweden and you can get your mind off of her completely. Like, you will actually be able to run away from your problems. You will break up with her. We will go to Sweden. That'll be the end of it. But it was because she called with that tragedy and he felt compelled to be with her in that moment. And that's one of the things that I definitely wanted to speak about when it comes to this film, because the dynamic between Dani and Christian it's kind of complicated.
Mhm.
And it's not as black and white as a lot of people think that it is.
Right. I think a lot of people really hate Christian, and I think that I didn't like him the first few times that we saw it, but eventually I was like, you know what? He's not a good boyfriend, he's not a good friend. But does he really deserve all of the things that happened to him in the movie? No. No, he really does not deserve those things.
And some people would call that a hot take, but I'm just like, okay, really analyze this for a second. On the surface, especially after only one viewing, because you don't get all of this after one viewing. This is a movie you need to watch multiple times if you
Mhm.
really want to sink deep into all of the different nuances and theories and ideas of it. But after one viewing, it's really easy to come to the conclusion that Christian is just your typical douchebag boyfriend. He doesn't actually care about her. He doesn't want to be with her anymore. He's got no heart. He's just a jerk, and Dani's weak and clingy. You can easily come to that conclusion after the first viewing. And that's why everybody got so happy at the end when he died. So you really have to watch this film a bit more closely to peel back some of those first few layers. And then when you do that, what you'll discover is that a lot of people were considering Dani to be the weak one and Christian to be the strong one. But honestly, it's kind of the other way around, because Dani's been trying to deal with a lot of things. She's trying to be there for her sister, who's the one who killed herself and her whole family. She's trying to navigate all those feelings regarding her own relationship. She's on medication because of her anxiety and depression. She's got an academic career to think about. She's got a lot going on. She's balancing all of this. And Christian, again, he doesn't even know what he's doing in school.
No, he's aimless, right?
Right.
Like he doesn't have any real motivation, no true goals. And I feel like when you take that into consideration, yeah, it does show that he's just not a strong like he's just not very good at relationships, period.
Right. But that doesn't necessarily suggest that he deserved everything that happened to him.
Right.
And it's likely that he may have even been waiting for Dani to just dump him sort of to take the pressure off of him so he didn't have to make that decision. But like he's really bad at consistently being there for Dani. There will be times during the film where he'll do something that really upsets her or confuses her or makes her question him. And then in another scene, he'll do something that's kind of sweet. And he will apologize. We've heard him in the film say that he was sorry when he said that we've been together for about 3.5 years. And she was like, 4 years, actually over 4 years. He caught himself. He was like, you're right. I'm sorry. 4 years. You're right. And I mean, like, he didn't have to do that. He could have doubled down and been like, that's not right. That can't be right. Whatever. Or he could have just shrugged it off. But he actually did apologize for being wrong. When he forgot her birthday, he realized that he forgot her birthday. He tried in his Christian-like way to try to make it right. And she saw through it. She was like, obviously, Pele told you that I told him that you forgot my birthday. So
Yeah, oh my gosh, that scene is so embarrassing.
it's awkward. It's raw. And he can't light the candle. So he's
Yeah.
like singing the song. And she's like looking at him like, seriously, dude, just stop. Just stop. Like, no. You know what I'm saying?
And then, like, he gave the excuse that he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that I forgot. I thought your birthday was yesterday." And it's like, "Well, you didn't say anything yesterday either."
Right. If you thought it was yesterday, why didn't you say happy birthday then? That would have actually made more sense. And then she would have been like, it's not till tomorrow. And then he could have easily said, oh, I guess I'm jet lagged. But he just forgot. Again, bad boyfriend. We can definitely agree on that. But boyfriend worthy of ritual sacrifice, I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think, especially not in the way that it happened.
Yeah, it was a lot. Like everything that happened to him was just like, whoa, you know what I mean? This is past punishing a bad boyfriend and going straight into like that. That's not really all that fair to him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, again, there are so many different takes on this film. I can guarantee you somebody's listening to that and going, bull crap, he deserved everything he got. He was the worst kind of boyfriend ever. And they're asking questions like, what kind of boyfriend would do some of the things that he's done to her? In the director's cut, they actually had a really important conversation where it finally seemed like he was coming out of his shell and telling her exactly how he really feels. And that should have been unpacked a lot more than it was. But then the Harger started doing things and it kind of like shifted the attention of both of them. And I also remembered when they were having that conversation and then the Harger person came up to her and said, you've got to see this. And she was like, why? What's happening now? When she goes in that scene that was cut out of the original film, when she goes there, Christian's not with her.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole thing that she witnessed, that was her by herself. He basically left her.
Yeah, and I mean, we see that trend throughout the movie. Remember when they first arrived and the tea was passed out, and Dani's like, I don't think I really want to. And Christian's like, oh, yeah, it's not a big deal or whatever. And then eventually they all end up doing it anyway. But Dani has a really bad trip and she just runs off by herself. And Christian's like, okay, sure.
Right. He doesn't try to go after her or anything. I feel like at the very least, you might not be Don Juan or this crazy ladies man, but there are some things that are just obvious. If your girlfriend, your significant other, whoever it is, your partner is feeling sick, scared, unsure, and they go walking off in a country that neither one of you have ever been to by themselves, you go after them. Even if they say, no, I'm fine. I'm going to go with you because I care about you and I don't want anything to happen to you. Your safety is important to me. You don't just let them go off like, okay. And he does it a couple times in the movie.
Yeah, like right after that at the stupa.
Right.
When
He's like,
she's
just
super distraught.
She's super distraught. It's like he doesn't realize her family just died a few months ago. Why wouldn't she be upset by watching these two elders jump to their death in real life? And he's just like, just take some time to yourself. That's your solution as her boyfriend. Take some time. Okay. In a country that you've never been to. You don't know anybody here. I'm just telling you to go off on your own. And I understand when things like that happen, the general consensus from the people who see the film are just like, yeah, he's just horrible. He deserved everything to happen to him. But again, I didn't consider it to be that black and white. He kind of just is bad at being a good boyfriend. And that would probably be how he would be with anybody. After this film had been released for a couple of weeks, everybody has seen it once, and it's causing this crazy polarizing argument. And the number one question is, was Christian the villain or was he taken advantage of? And when I say that, I'm referring to the fact that throughout the entire film, they have been doing shrooms, whether it's in tea or just straight up eating them. They have been under the influence of psychedelics the entire time. And we know, after seeing the film a couple times, that his fate was already sort of planned out. So when the things that happened to him happened, you have to ask yourself, well, how much of that was him actually just doing it himself? And how much of it was him being like under the control of both the psychedelic drugs and whatever spell or whatever folk magic was placed upon him when Maya put stuff in his food and in his drink?
Yeah. Ooh. I mean, it happened throughout the film where he's like, "Oh, I found this pube in my meat tart."
Right.
And does he ever actually say anything about the juice? I don't think that he does.
Nope, he just drinks it. And it's so crazy because his drink was so much darker than everybody
It's
else's.
so dark.
Like, it's clearly something in his drink that isn't in everyone else's drink. And I feel like if you and I had been there and you noticed that, you may have,
You already know.
you would have asked, you'd have been like, don't drink that. Why is yours darker than theirs is? Look at everyone else's drink and now look at yours.
Yeah.
Yours is the only one that is colored this way.
One of these is not like the others.
Exactly. That would have stood out to you right away. And so, like, he's already under the influences of shrooms, and Maya contaminates his food and his drink. So it's only a matter of time before his inhibitions are completely down. He has no real control over anything that's happening. So at the end of or close to the end of the film, when he does what he does, and we'll get into that, is it really even him doing that, or is he essentially being like magic raped?
That's what I believe. That's truly what I believe. Because even when they were sitting at the table, when they were having that celebration for Dani becoming the May Queen, and he sits down and he asks the older man next to him, he goes, "What is happening?" And the guy just claps in his face.
And totally like messes up his perception.
Like he looked like he wanted to cry.
Yeah, he even asked him, like, why did you do that?
Why did you do that?
Like, he was clearly having a seriously bad trip / reaction. Like, he didn't know where he was or what was going on. And I've never been under the influence of psychedelics, but I have talked to people who have. And they would be the first one to tell you, somebody clapping in your face when you're like just tripping off of mushrooms, that would probably be one of the most jarring sensations ever. So, like, he wasn't okay. He wasn't all right. So everything that happened to him after that, like, you have to ask yourself, like, how much of that was he actually in control of?
And clearly whatever they gave him was way stronger than what everybody else took.
Yeah.
We know that the whole group had been on psychedelics the whole time. Dani was also taking sleeping pills.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about that? Like that combination of the mushrooms plus the sleeping pills?
Yeah. It's funny that you bring that up because in that scene when she catches Christian right in the act, she throws up. And obviously when we first see it, we're like, she probably did that because she was just so upset she threw up. And that happens. I've known people who've been so emotionally upset that they actually throw up. But now I'm starting to wonder if maybe it was that plus the fact that she was still buzzing off of mushrooms and sleeping pills and now her stomach's all messed up and now she's all upset and it just became this like recipe for her to get sick.
Also trying to swallow a whole fish.
Right, tail first. They have some weird custom when you become May Queen where you have to, for good luck, you have to try to eat an entire like raw fish tail first. And she actually she gave it a try. Like she opened her mouth, but when she realized that the tail was actually in her mouth, she's like, what am I doing? She like spits it out. But yeah, when you take all of those things in consideration, it's like both of them were really like heavily manipulated. Dani really shouldn't have gone on that trip.
None of them should have gone on the trip.
She was not in an emotional place to do something like that. She's slightly bullied into doing shrooms by Mark when they first get there. So she's in an unfamiliar place under the influence of psychedelics. Of course she's going to have a bad trip. Like, who wouldn't? Like, in order to experience that in a positive way, you usually have to be with people that you know in a place that you know. You can't be in like a random place with random people, especially when you're already dealing with mental anguish that you haven't fully healed from yet. Like that's just a recipe for disaster.
That mental anguish, that is part of what made her such a perfect candidate for going to the community and actually becoming part of the community.
Yep. And we see that in real life cults. Like if you talk about the Jim Jones cult and that entire community of people that were massacred by drinking the Flavor Aid, he only really wanted people who were lost. No family, no money, no friends. They were looking to be a part of something. And that's the reason why they joined, and that was the reason why they were so easy to manipulate. Everything that he said, they just ate it up because they were just like, I just want to be a part of this so badly. And that's not to say he wasn't a charismatic cult leader, because you kind of have to be in order to be a cult leader. But when you go after people who are already sort of weak in the mind and very vulnerable, it's easy to manipulate them. And so you're right, like because she was in that place, that made it super easy for her to be acclimated into that system. And it sucks because when she gets there to the Harga community, it's like so inviting. It's so lush and green and cheery and welcoming. And she does have a moment where she does drop her guard a bit. And she's kind of lulled into that false sense of tranquility and peace. It's kind of like a nice, refreshing escape from some of the thoughts and experiences that she's had up to that point. And then she watches those two elders swan dive off the cliff, and it all comes right back to her.
Right.
It wasn't gone. It was just lying dormant, that pain that she's been experiencing. So all the lovely scenery and the beautiful music and the mushroom tea and the welcoming villagers, none of that could really numb that pain, especially when she started to see what was really going on in that community. That's when she like woke up and was like, we need to get out of here. I guess we have to talk about that scene, the Etterstupa, because that's the first really jarring scene that we see, minus the whole crime scene with the daughter and the two parents. So in the movie, they have a tradition where at certain points in your life, you have certain responsibilities and a role in the community. And after you get to a certain age, I forget the age that he said. It wasn't anything super old like 99 or 100 or anything like that. It was something like in their 70s maybe.
You mean for the Etterstupa?
Yes.
72.
72. Okay. So once you get to age 72, in their belief system, you have reached the end of your life cycle. And to continue to live on past that and experience all the things that a lot of 70-year-old people tend to experience, the pain, the breakdown of your joints, the breakdowns of your organs, possibly the breakdown of your working mind. Instead of putting somebody through all that when they get to that age or older than that age and having to watch them slowly fade away, they just say, well, at 72, that's the end of your life. So now whatever is left, you will sacrifice it in the form of ritualistic suicide by way of jumping off this sacred cliff onto the ground.
In front of the entire commune.
Right, in front of the entire commune. That's like what you do when you get to 72. And again, Pele didn't say it outright, but that's what he meant. Because Dani asked, well, what happens after 72? And he just went and put his hand across his neck like they die. Nobody knew about that except Pele and Josh. Now, Josh had never seen it, and he obviously did not know that they were going to be front row for this ritual. And he didn't tell Christian or anybody else what it was because he just felt really proud that he knew what it was and nobody else did.
He was definitely gatekeeping information.
Yes. And I feel like if he had just told them that that was going to happen, things may have been a little bit different for them. So I must have seen this movie about like 70 times at this point. I own it, obviously, but I've seen it. You and I have seen it so many times. the moment that scene starts and we hear those horns playing, my heart actually starts to beat.
Yeah.
And it's really strange because I know what's going to happen, obviously, but something about the background score, it like draws me into the scene and my pulse actually starts to race. And I mean, the whole beginning part of it, when they're kind of making their way up the hill, and then Civ starts singing from the Ruby Rider book that they have, and the older people put their hands out, and one of the other villagers like cuts into it, and then they take their bloody hands and smear them on this huge rune with all this writing all over it. At that point, the music takes a serious dip,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds way eerier than it did
Yeah.
previously. It's at that point that I'm just like, this is scary. And
it
when
gets very heavy.
yes, and when I was in the theater, I remember my heart beating fast because I was like, I don't know what's going to happen, but the music is leading me to believe that either they're going to be killed, they're going to commit suicide, something really upsetting is about to happen. And so it's like so eerie. And Josh apparently knew what the Etches Trooper was. He wasn't telling. But then once he witnessed it, I think even he was like, can they even do that? Like, what did I just watch? Like, it's one thing to read about it and to study it, but it's something far different to actually see it. Meanwhile, Christian sees how shook up Dani is by the whole thing. She brings it back up. He's like, yeah, that was really shocking. That's not really the reaction that I would have after watching two people plummet to their death.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was really shocking. No, I don't even think I would have the words to form to explain how I felt in that situation. And I'm not sure how he was so easily able to distance himself from his own emotions about that.
Because he doesn't have emotions about anything.
I imagine that that's what it is. Like, he's just so far removed from even his own emotions that witnessing something like that, I mean, it was shocking to him, but that was about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just shocking. And the same with Josh, because when he went back to the place where they were sleeping and Josh was sitting on the bed, he was like, how about that, right? And Christian was like, you okay? And Josh was like, yeah, I'm fine. It's like, are you though? Like,
I mean,
how can you be?
He also had ample time to mentally prepare as well, because he was one of the only ones who actually knew what it meant.
True. Yeah, I don't, if I really understood that that's what that meant and we were actually going to be front row to watch that, I would have said, I think I'll stay here
Mm-hmm.
and you guys can just tell me about it. And hopefully what it really meant was that maybe it was something figurative, not something literal.
I wonder how Mark would have reacted had he actually gone to it.
There would have been a lot of obscenities that he would have let out, I'm sure. But he probably would have, I wouldn't be surprised if he was like, that was the awesomest thing I ever saw.
Yeah, because when he heard about it, when everybody came back to the sleeping quarters, he was like, man, you guys let me miss all the good stuff.
He was like, why would you let me sleep through that? And Christian was just like, what? Shut up. So yeah, that was a very jarring scene. And once you see that scene in the movie, you really start to put the things two and two together and be like, okay, this is not the place for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it only gets worse from there.
Yeah.
Like, everybody who was killed in this movie died in like horrible, horrible ways.
I feel like what really stands out about this scene too is like, yeah, the music gets really intense and layered, and you can just tell that something is going to happen. But then after the elder male jumps off the cliff and he misses.
Yeah, he rolled a 1 on that one.
Yeah.
The woman, the older woman, she committed. Like, she landed face first on
Right.
that, and you got to see all of the
gore
yeah.
and viscera.
Yeah.
But then he misses, and the community, they all start sobbing and wailing because they, as a group, could feel his pain.
Right.
That made it even more jarring.
And then as soon as they corrected that situation, because when he hit the ground, he landed feet first, essentially. She did a belly flop right on the rock, face first. So she died on impact. But he stepped off and basically annihilated his leg. Like, it was broken in like 3 different places.
Right.
And so they're all screaming and everything and wailing for him. Dude comes over with this huge mallet. And you see him holding the mallet in the beginning, and you're just like, is that going to play a part in this? Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
And they hand the mallet over to other Harga people. I imagine they were probably related to him, which is why they got the honor of taking the hammer and smashing him in the face with it until he was good and dead.
Yeah.
And as soon as he was dead, everybody in the community stopped wailing.
It's actually really fascinating because we see the community do this multiple times.
Yep.
Like, obviously, at the very end, when Dani catches Christian, the women all rally around her and they're all upset as well. But then there's the incident with Mark and the ancestral tree. For the first time ever, I actually noticed that when Ulf is one of the commune members, he is very upset that Mark has urinated on this ancestral tree.
Desecrated it, essentially.
Yeah. And he is so upset about it. And this happens very quietly because the focus is on Mark and the other friends.
Right.
But in the background, you can see that whoever was from the commune who witnessed it comes over behind Ulf, and they're also sobbing uncontrollably. I'd never noticed it prior to us rewatching it.
That's weird because I didn't notice that either. I did notice several members of the Harga consoling Ulf while he's crying. And I just assumed that Ulf was directly connected to the souls who were associated with that sacred tree. And that's the reason why he was crying so much. It was basically like, those are my great-great-great-grandparents that you just peed on. And so that's why they were rallying around him. But like you said...
Or could it be because he knew that soon he was going to be part of that ancestral tree?
That's one way to think of it, yeah. I mean, it would not be hard to assume that once your lifespan is over, your soul goes into nature in one way, shape, or form, and that tree represents where your souls are gonna go. So if somebody has desecrated it, you don't want to go there. That's actually a really good point. Mark is such a douche, I swear. Like, the thing about Mark, and I love Will Poulter for this because, like, it's one of the only roles that I've ever seen him play that was like this. Like I said, all he wants to do is do drugs and women. But the thing is, he's bad at both. Like, when he was like pressuring Dani into hurrying up and tripping with the rest of them, and he wasn't really pressuring her. Christian had offered to wait with Dani because she wanted to get her footing first. She's in an unfamiliar place. She doesn't want to start tripping right away. So when Christian tells Mark, we're going to hang out and wait, Mark's like, dude, we can't trip at 2 different times. Like, what? That won't make any sense. And Christian, and this is, again, another example of where Christian is being surprisingly boyfriend-like. He's like, well, do you want to wait for us then? And then there's this silence where I can almost hear Mark's thoughts like, dude, why are you being like this right now? Like, you don't even like her. Like, why are you acting this way? But then she decides to just go ahead and do it. Like, she basically gets pushed into it. But then when they're all tripped out, sitting on the hill, just like completely tripping balls, Mark is the only one that's flipping out. Everybody else is chilling. He's all like, why is the sun still out? If it's 9 p.m., that can't be right. And he's like, I'm not okay. He's like, I don't want new people right now. Like, he's completely tripping out. And it's like, he was the one that wanted to do this so badly. You would think that he had done this multiple times, and yet he's the one that's actually having the worst trip until Dani actually has her bad trip. But then he sees not Maya, but what was the other girl's name?
Is that Inga?
Inga, I think that's the girl's name, yeah. And he's like, oh my God, I want to give her a bath. And he's like so obsessed with this girl, and when she starts showing him like attention, he's so awkward. When she comes over right before he's murdered, she's like, you want to come with me? And if he had game, he wouldn't have been nearly as awkward as he was. He was like, guys, I'm going to go. She's going to show me. And then even before that scene, when he sees her looking at him from across the way, he's all like, crap, she's looking at me. He's still one of my favorite characters in the entire
Yeah, I enjoy
movie.
Mark.
Yeah, he's just ridiculous. Now we do meet other characters who are outsiders as well. Two in particular, Connie and Simon, played by Elora Torgia. I think that's how you pronounce her name. Who's currently playing Kat in Game of Thrones House of the Dragon, if you're watching that. And then Archie Madekwe, who I remember seeing in the film Beau is Afraid, and he was also in another Ari Aster film called Lurker from 2025.
Wow, I do not remember him in Beau is Afraid, but I wasn't a big fan of Beau is Afraid. So.
I mean, it wasn't my favorite Ari Aster film either, and honestly, I don't need to see it again. I don't think watching it a second time is going to change my mind. It didn't do it for me.
No.
Sorry, Ari, I didn't like that one.
I did like him in Saltburn.
Yes, he was good in Saltburn. I didn't list that one here. Yeah, Saltburn was awesome. So anyway, we are introduced to Connie and Simon, and these two are a couple from London, introduced into the community by Ingmar, which was Pele's brother. And we find out that Ingmar had a thing for Connie, and they must have went out on like one date. She didn't even know it was a date, but he clearly was thinking it was a date. And then she met Simon, and Simon has made it very clear multiple times that Ingmar needs to back off of Connie. Like, it's over. He flaunts Connie in front of him so much. Like, it's almost like they just started dating because they're so affectionate. He's so affectionate with her all the time, directly in front of Ingmar. Like, there's one scene where he's like nuzzling up against her and everything, and Ingmar's just staring at them like, what could have been? Like, he's being so mean about it.
The interesting thing is, I feel like Pele and Ingmar brought their visitors to the commune for different reasons. Pele did it because he really did want to find the May Queen, whereas Ingmar did it because he wanted Simon to be murdered.
That much is true, because the relationship between Ingmar and Simon, we can tell. It doesn't have to be like 2 full scenes of them going back and forth. Just the little bit of interaction that they've had is enough for you to say, oh, they don't like each other.
And there was literally no way Connie was ever going to be the May Queen.
No, unfortunately not.
No.
I mean, I said this before, but they were literally marked for death the moment that Ingmar walked in with them. Like, they were like, oh, they're going to be sacrificed for sure. But yeah, like, I just thought it was really funny how, like, even when Dani is asking how Simon and Connie met, and then Ingmar tries to explain it, and Connie's like, we only went on one date, and I didn't even know it was a date. And then Ingmar tries to walk it back because he doesn't want to make it awkward. And then he says, and now Connie and Simon are getting married. And Dani's all like, that's great. And Simon's like, yeah, and Ingmar's going to officiate it. And Dani's like, really? He's like, no.
No.
Like, they do not like each other. And then when Simon sees that bear in the cage, he's like, are we just going to ignore the bear right there? And Ingmar looks back at him. He's like, it's a bear. Like, he's not interested in having anything to do with Simon. Like, they do not get along. I would not be surprised if Simon met his demise partially because of Ingmar.
Definitely.
So, but yeah, those two, I really felt bad for them. They ultimately were dead before they even got a chance to do anything. And somebody else that I spoke to who was a big fan of this movie, they brought up an interesting theory, because during the Etterstupa, obviously, nobody knew what was going to happen except the people who were actually there. And of course, Josh had some knowledge of it as well. So when the First Lady belly flops right on the rock and kills herself, Simon and Connie are hysterical. And Simon is like going off on people, like, you guys are just sitting around staring at this nonsense. This is crazy. So then when the older man's turn comes, he's about to do the exact same thing. Simon is like literally screaming up him like, do not jump. Do not jump. Don't do it, man. Don't. And my friend was like, I think the reason why they killed Simon off was because he interrupted this tradition that was very important to both of those older people. And that's the reason why the older man, that's the reason why he bungled it and didn't die on impact like he was supposed to. Because he was distracted by Simon screaming at him. So he couldn't concentrate. He couldn't like let go of his life. He probably had second thoughts about it. Like, right before he did it. And that's the reason why he landed feet first and didn't just commit like the lady did.
While we're on the topic of outsiders coming to the commune, so we know we have Dani, Christian, Josh, and Mark. We also have Connie and Simon. But we see that other people do come to the commune with other villagers.
Mhm.
Because when they first enter the village, everybody's in plain clothes, so it's pretty obvious.
Who is a villager and who is an outsider?
But what happens to them throughout the movie?
We never see him again. And we know they didn't just leave. So it's a safe bet that they met their demise in some way. It's almost like if you don't become one of them, you die. It's one or the other. There is no middle ground. Like, you're either going to be part of us or we're going to sacrifice you. Either way, we win. That's so sad. That's like the bleakest thing ever.
Yeah. Because it looked like there were a lot of outsiders who came, but then eventually you don't see them anymore.
They totally just aren't there anymore.
It gets to the point where, like, gradually you see less and less of them until Christian is literally the only outsider left.
Right.
And when he's there by himself, he really sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. He's not wearing their tunic, and they're not really paying much attention to him. They've already accepted Dani as their new May Queen. And I was going to say, throughout the film, we see that despite recognizing that she probably needs to leave, Dani does start to become accepted by the community. This is even before the maypole dance. Like, they actually start integrating her into more things. And when they asked her to help them make the meat pies and stuff, and then the one girl comments to her that she's really pretty, like, when's the last time that anyone's probably ever said that to her?
Right.
And so, like, it's just interesting. And then they have the maypole dance, which was essentially one big trip. And she inadvertently becomes the new May Queen. That was not planned.
Oh, I think it was planned.
But how?
Remember, Pele even drew an illustration of her as the May Queen.
Well, I imagine he was hoping that she would be the May Queen, but he didn't think that it was going to go down like exactly because, and the reason, I guess the reason why I'm doubling down on that is because there was a lot of things that could have changed the way that actually happened. And you already said, we already know that there isn't too many options for outsiders. You're either one of us or you become a sacrifice. So if she had not been able to stay dancing for as long as everyone else because she was tripping balls and she was dizzy from spinning and everything, and she did fall, she would have lost. It's pure dumb luck that those other two girls bumped into each other, fell on the ground, and she was the last girl standing. That was not intentional, in my opinion. I think that was just, that literally was like luck of the draw. That's why when Pele comes up to her, he goes, "You're May Queen," and he kisses her on the lips because he didn't expect that. That may have been something that he was looking forward to. Like, that'd have been awesome if she becomes May Queen. But
I think his gut really told him this is the May Queen. I think he was very confident about that. And then when she got there, she was naturally very good at the dance.
True. That's true.
I mean, freakishly good at this dance. I'm just like, how are you able to do this when we know that you are high out of your mind right now? How are you doing this? And then remember, she actually started speaking Swedish.
And I don't know if that was her actually speaking Swedish or if that was both of them tripping so much that they were speaking gibberish to each other. And because they were so stoned, they felt like they could understand what they were both saying. Like, I guess we can just speculate. But I mean, if she really did pick up the language that quick, like, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. And we both know that Pele is known for his intuition. So, I mean, you might be right. Maybe he just had a feeling she's going to become May Queen.
Well, do you remember when, like, years ago when we first saw it, there was this theory that Dani's family was actually part of the Harga?
Yes.
And then left. A part of me, after watching it again, I'm like, you know what? I feel like that theory actually isn't quite as far-fetched as some people might think it is. We see a lot of yellow in her family home. Even the hose that her sister attaches to her face is yellow. The bedding is yellow. We see that picture of Dani on her parents' nightstand, and it has, like, the yellow flowers
Mhm.
on it. Then when we get to the commune, there's lots of yellow flowers. Even the candle that Christian puts in her little birthday cake is yellow. I feel like there's so many little signs that point to, hey, maybe she really does have ties to Harga and she just doesn't remember.
And that's the reason why she's instinctively good at the
Mhm.
dance, and she's welcomed so quickly and things like that. Just to go back in case people hadn't actually seen the film, the hose that Andrea was referring to, the sister, who I believe may have, if we're using this as a theory, may have also had ties to Harga, and maybe that's what caused her to get to a place where she decides she don't want to be alive anymore and she wants to take her family with her. It could have been just her being super depressed, or it could have been part of that theory that you're telling me about. But she took a hose, connected it to the car, and then essentially had a splitter. And one part of the hose went to her room, and the other part of the hose went to her parents' room. And while they were asleep, she turned the car on, and everybody gets to breathe in carbon monoxide.
Mhm.
And she attached the hose to her face with tape. Like,
Yeah, like,
she was
it's
about
on
it.
there.
Yeah.
It's almost to the point where it's like, could she have really done that herself? Or would somebody else have had to have done it? I don't know.
It's weird because I don't know how much carbon monoxide would have had to fill the room, because obviously she's got to start the car, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, she can attach the hose and bring one of them up to her room and the other one to her parents' room while they're asleep. But she's still got to go back down to the car, start the car, then go back up to the room and tape the hose to her face. Like, honestly, thinking about it now, I wonder how much of that was actually her doing that, or maybe the Harga did have something to do with it.
We'll never
We'll
know.
never know. But that's an interesting theory.
I also put in my notes that seeing the hose attached to Terry and the parents made me think of, like, the connection of a family tree.
Ah,
And when we get to the commune, we see her family in the trees.
we see her family in the trees. She hallucinates and sees her sister a few times
Mhm.
throughout the film. Right after she becomes May Queen and everyone's celebrating around her and they're rallying around her and congratulating her, a couple villagers, and I'm putting up air quotes here, walk by her. One of them is her father and the other one is her mother.
Mhm.
And yeah, she could have been tripping balls. She probably was tripping balls, obviously. And then we see when they hoist her up on this platform and start walking with her in the bushes, you can actually see like her sister's face with that hose connected to it.
Mhm.
You have to look for it, but it's there. And so, like, that entire horrible scene is what obviously kicks off this entire film. But the yellow, I didn't remember that the hoses were yellow.
Yeah.
This is one of those films where they use colors intentionally. So you have to pick up on it. And I think that when you present that theory, it makes sense that maybe she was always destined to be the May Queen.
Mhm.
It's a very interesting theory.
I do think it's really interesting too that her sister's name literally means her name is Terry. Terry, and their last name is
Ardor
Arbor.
or Arbor.
Arder,
Yeah,
Arder.
Ardor, yeah.
And the name Terry literally means harvester or summer. It could even mean people's ruler,
Huh.
which I thought was really fascinating considering the fact that they were going to Harga, and this was such a important time of year for them.
Uh-huh.
So I thought that was really fascinating to point out for Terry.
Right. We can't continue this conversation about this movie without going ahead and bringing up that infamous ritualistic mating scene between Christian and Maya. It's probably one of the most unsettling parts of the film. But the reason that I bring it up, obviously, I want to go into everything that leads up to that because, Christian is there with Dani, but he's not really looking to hook up with anybody. Like Pele and Mark, they all bring that up to him. Like
Mhm.
that's an option. But again, this is one of those situations where he's kind of on the fence about everything. So he's not necessarily there for girls or whatever, but he's not there either. And I guess that's one reason why a lot of people thought that when he was in that mating ritual with Maya, it was all him. Like, that's just what he wanted to do. His inhibitions may have been lowered, but it was him doing that. I don't know if I agree with that.
I don't think that at all.
No, I don't really think that that's how that worked. I think he was fully being controlled. And when Civ brings it up to him, that's her name, right? Civ?
Mhm.
When she brings it up to him, she's like basically the leader of all these traditions that are going on and kind of like the figurehead for the Harga community and lifestyle and everything. And so she pulls him aside and she asks him how he feels about Maya. This is after Maya's already contaminated his food and he's well on his way to being controlled. But she asks him how he feels about her. And he's like, I haven't even talked to her. And he tried to talk to her once, but she doesn't speak his language. So all she could say was hello. And then she had to have one of the other members kind of translate. But they have not actually had a conversation. So when Civ brings it up to him, the idea that he could possibly have sex with her if he wanted to, he's kind of like, I'm here with Dani. And Civ's like, she doesn't need to know.
And I'm not proposing marriage. We just want you to impregnate her.
Right. Now, I don't know about you, but we wouldn't have had to have much more of a conversation than that before I stormed out and was like, yeah, we're done. I don't want to be here anymore. And that probably would have led to my demise as well. But I'm just being honest, but he kind of sits with it for a second. He's like, I think I ate one of her pubes. And he was like, yeah, that's probably true. And then she can see that he's kind of sort of, again, on the fence about it. So she offers up the idea that this would give you a pretty good perspective about our rituals. She knows he's writing a paper. She knows he's in school and trying to do a thesis on this whole thing. And she's like, what better experience than this to write about or to give you that perspective? And he kind of backs off and he's like, couldn't I still have an experience without participating? Again, like, he wouldn't say something like that if he was 100% douchebag. Like, he had to think about it for a second. Like, I don't think that this is something I want to do. Now, we'll never know if he said yes or no to Civ about it. But we do know he's already under control by the end of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that scene actually takes place, this is after they've whisked Dani away so she can go bless the crops and the livestock as the new May Queen is supposed to do. And she asks if Christian can come and they tell her no. And it has nothing to do with the Queen must ride alone. It has to do with we need to segregate you from Christian so Christian can do what we need him to do and you can do what we need you to do. And she goes and she blesses the crops and the livestock as instructed. And meanwhile, Christian is being controlled like a marionette, walked all the way into that
temple.
Mm-hmm. And he's not even in control of his motor functions.
And then they blow even more drugs in his face.
Right. They tell him, breathe deep for your vitality. He doesn't even have enough control of his body to not do it. Like, he still breathes it right in. So now he's like double stoned. And he goes in there and Maya is laying down, doing the spread eagle, ready for him to come over and do this whole thing. And what makes it even eerier is all the women standing around singing while this is going on. And this kind of touches on the idea that you brought up earlier, which is that the Harga have a tendency to experience things together, whether it's pleasure or pain. So when Dani finds out that he's doing this and she's completely distraught, they feel that. When the older people when the older man jumped off the cliff and didn't make it and was basically suffering on the ground, they felt that. So when he's in there having sex with Maya, all the women are making the same kind of sounds that she was making. And it's like this weird hive mind type of thing where they all sort of feel each other's emotions. Like, I guess that's part of their culture, is that we feel each other's pain, we feel each other's pleasure. Like, it's just how they operate. to us, it looked weird and it felt unsettling. And I remember seeing it in the theaters and going, I don't know how to feel about this, man.
I mean, we also find out that Maya is only like 15 or 16.
Right. And he's old enough to be a grad student.
Right.
So do the math. And they had also brought up the fact that there is inbreeding that goes on in that community. So like anything goes clearly.
Mhm.
Incest, inbreeding, like just all sorts of ridiculous stuff. So very, very off-putting scene. And then obviously after he's done the deed, they don't need him anymore. So when he basically wakes up out of his stupor and he realizes what he just did, he tries to make a beeline out of there.
Yeah, he's pretty hysterical, actually.
Right. He can't believe what just happened. He's completely naked and he's looking for a place to run. So you see him running one area, and then you can actually see other Harga members calmly walking up. They already know what just went on. So it's not like they're after him or anything. They're just kind of walking. So he can't go that way. So then he tries to run another way. He sees some other people coming. He can't go that way. He's covering his junk. He's running. And the only place that he can go is like, essentially it looks like a chicken barn to me.
Like a coop?
Yeah, like a chicken coop. And when he goes in there, he looks, and what does he see?
He sees Simon.
And Simon has been subjected to being blood eagled.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone doesn't know what that is, it's kind of hard for me to explain it because I honestly don't understand, but it's a form of torture where I think they cut your lungs out of your chest and then flay them back to look like wings, essentially. Obviously, you die. And in the film, it gives the impression that he's still technically alive while this has happened to him. They also plucked out his eyes and put flowers in place of them. I'm not really sure what the symbolism behind that was, but they're not just flowers sitting on his face. They like pulled out his eyes and stuffed flowers in the sockets. But we can see his lungs like going in and out like he's breathing. Apparently that wouldn't happen. It makes sense to me. I mean, if somebody ripped out your lungs and then pulled them back, like you're probably going to die within minutes. So ain't going to be no breathing.
I'm sure that was probably still just Christian tripping.
And that's what I thought. So the last time we watched it, I looked around to see if anything else was kind of surging in and out, because throughout the film, you can tell when a character is under the influence because the trees and everything that is around them is like pulsating in and out to give the impression that they are under the influence. And so when I saw his lungs moving, I was like, he's probably just tripping out, but nothing else in that scene is doing that. So we're led to believe that Simon is dying. He's not dead yet. He's in the process of dying. It wasn't anatomically correct in that obviously he would die from that before they would be able to, because they had him hanging basically from the ceiling.
And he was like, he was the first one to go missing. So that means that he probably was hanging there for quite a while.
Right. And then most people are going to ask, well, what happened to Connie? The whole situation between how Connie and Simon got split, I just found to be so frustrating because I was like, she can tell that this is bullcrap. She even says that, but they're trying to give her some sort of stupid answer. And it's not just one person that's leading this story on. Like everybody who was involved is making sure that the lie of what happened to Simon stays solid. And so she's looking for Simon. She can't find him and she wants to leave. And I can't remember the name of the villager who came up to her and told her, but he basically said, yeah, Simon wanted to leave. So they took him to the train station and the truck's going to come back for you afterwards. And she's like, wait, what? And he was like, well, it only had 2 seats, so there was no room. And she's like, he's my fiance. And he wouldn't have just left me here. And they tried to give her some mealy-mouth explanation for why he left and didn't come back for her and that they are coming back for her or whatever. Obviously, we know they killed him, and that's why he's not there. And so when she gets frustrated by that and storms off toward the ending of the film, we see her. And when I first saw it, I didn't even recognize her.
No. Because she had clearly been in water, so her body was all distended and bloated.
Right. And it took me like seeing it at least a second time before I realized, oh, wait, that was Connie. Okay. Well, then what happened to her? If you have the director's cut, you know what happened to her. If anyone knew that that was Connie, I guess they would have just assumed that they just like drown her or something. But they actually sort of go into that a little bit more in the director's cut. Not specifically with her, but you'll notice what she's wearing in that wheelbarrow. And the director's cut kind of touches on that. So yeah, they met their demise, and Christian is well on his way to meeting his, because now he's already had sex with Maja, and that's all they needed him. That's all they needed him for. They don't even need to keep him around anymore. And I'm pretty sure that they were 100% counting on him being the main sacrifice. So he's in the barn. He finds Simon hanging there, and he turns around, and somebody is waiting right there in front of him, and they blow more drugs into his mouth. So he's been hit with drugs about 3-4 times at this point. And these drugs actually knock him out completely. But what most people don't notice is that when he falls down on the ground, there's a Harga standing by the entrance, but on the other side of that wall, someone's looking in. And it's Pele. Pele knew that all this was going to happen. And he essentially orchestrated the entire thing. If you recognize that that was him, it all comes into play. You're like, he set this whole thing up.
What a good villain.
Right. Like, I was just like, wow, like, unbelievable. And so when Christian wakes up, he can't talk. He can't move. He's completely paralyzed by whatever it was that they blew in his face.
And they let him know that too.
Right. Like, they opened his eyes and was like, you can't speak and you can't move. Have a good day. And so he's in this wheelchair, and they wheel him over to the rest of the crowd. This is basically like the last day of this entire traditional ceremony. And this is when they make it very clear that they're going to be sacrificing bodies. And they already had a couple bodies who were from Harga that had already died, and they had already basically turned them into pieces of art, essentially. But these are real people, like bodies that are going to be sacrificed. And then they announced that Pele, he brought in new blood. So those people are going to be sacrificed. And they thanked him for picking their May Queen. And there's Dani sitting on the stage, covered in flowers, like from head to toe in this huge flowered like outfit. And she's the May Queen. So she gets to decide who is sacrificed, besides all the ones that they've already picked.
And besides Ulf and Ingmar.
Right. Ingmar is one of the people that needs to be sacrificed. And we see him crying hysterically in an earlier scene. And it isn't until the end that you put 2 and 2 together. It's like the people he brought didn't work out. And because of that, he's got to sacrifice himself. That's essentially what they told him. And that's the reason why he was crying so much, because, I mean, he doesn't want to die, but you have to. That's just how we do things here. So Ingmar's going to be sacrificed. There's going to be another Harga that's going to be sacrificed.
That's Ulf.
That's Ulf, right? And then Dani gets to pick between one more person from Harga or Christian. And she's sitting there on the stage, and this is where she has to make a decision.
And she had just witnessed what Christian did with Maya.
Right. So that was very fresh in her mind. She had no idea that he was under the influence of drugs, obviously. She just saw him and Maya having sex, and that really upset her. So that's on her mind. Everything that has happened between them is on her mind. And eventually she makes her choice. And so that bear that was in the beginning of the film that Simon was asking about, they take that bear out of the cage, kill it, lay it down on a table, split it right down the middle, and some of the children, the younger kids in the village, along with the help of an elder, have to remove all the organs from the bear, but not to burst them, not to destroy them. Like, they still want to keep them intact. They're probably going to put those in that eternal fire that they have on the grounds that they keep burning. And so they remove all the innards of the bear. Then they take Christian's paralyzed body. Now remember, he's not dead. He's just super paralyzed. And they remove his legs using, I think it's called a rope saw. And they sever both of his legs and stuff his body into the bear suit.
And you may not realize that they have done that unless you see the extended cut.
Right. Yeah, I don't think that was, they didn't really go into detail about it in the original cut, but the director's cut, you kind of see a little bit more of that. So they put him in this bear, and then they go to this big yellow temple. Now they had touched on the temple earlier in the film, but they just said, that's just a sacred temple. We don't go in there. And that's all they said. They didn't say what goes on in there. They didn't say why they don't go in there. They just said, that's the sacred temple. We don't go in there. So now that temple comes into play, and everybody is sat in that temple. And this is where you realize everybody who was an outsider and a few Harga are all being sat inside of this temple that they are going to set on fire. And Christian is sitting right in the middle in this bear suit. And he is very much awake and very much alive. He just can't move. And he is now without legs, the bottom part of his legs. I think they cut his legs. Did they cut them completely off, or did they just sever them at the knee?
We'll never know.
We won't know. Okay. Well, he ain't got no legs. And so that's the only way that they could fit him into the bear's body, was to cut his legs off. And apparently this is something that they do every 90 years. So they're good at it. They know what they're doing. Because if you didn't, he would probably bleed to death. So they were able to sever his legs without him bleeding to death. And they bring some men in there with torches. And before they do that, they give Ulf and Ingmar something on their tongue. One of them is apparently supposed to make sure that you feel no pain. And the other one is supposed to be so that you feel no fear.
It didn't work.
No, I don't think either one of them worked, because they were both scared and they both felt pain. As soon as, I think it's Ulf, gets caught on fire, he immediately starts screaming. He was the one that was given the I think it's from the yew tree, some sap from the yew tree. And they said, feel no pain. He was screaming like he felt that. So then the whole temple just goes up in smoke, like everything is burning in there, including Christian. Of course, everybody outside of the temple also starts screaming. And they start screaming and writhing. And we even see Pele, it looks like he's not crying, but it looks like he's almost like apologizing. Like he's on his hands and knees, and he's rearing up and down with his eyes closed. I don't know what he's saying. Obviously, he's just screaming. But essentially, they're all feeling the pain of being burned alive. And Dani is there. She's coughing because there's so much smoke coming out of this wooden temple that's burning down. And the look on her face is at first like,
she looks distraught.
Right. Like, is this really happening? But then as the temple comes down, it's almost like as the temple gets destroyed, that part of her that was unsure of her relationship, that was dealing with so much pain and grief, not just from Christian, but just from everything, it's like that also got destroyed as well. And so that look of distraught on her face turns into almost a look of delight. And I think that's the part that people were misconstruing as she's happy that she got her revenge. One, she's on psychedelics, so I'm not really sure what she knows is reality and what she doesn't know is reality. But I don't think that smile was like, yes, I killed him. I think that smile was more like, finally, I can start fresh. My life is now, I guess, I'm starting a new journey. It's relief, but it's also just like peace. It's a peace that she's never felt before. It's acceptance. It's not necessarily just, I'm glad that I killed Christian because he got on my nerves anyway, and now he's dead and everything's great now. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very strange smile. It looks very devilish, but honestly, I just feel like it was more just like, finally, I belong somewhere. Like, I feel like I belong. Like, my pain is gone with this temple burning down.
The smile actually reminds me of the sun that we see in the tapestry at the beginning of the movie.
So for anybody who hasn't seen the film, the moment that it opens, like literally the first few seconds of the film, we see an illustration that tells the entire story of the film from beginning to end.
The entire story.
Like from beginning to end. And obviously, if you see it the first time, you're not going to recognize anything that's going on there. And it kind of comes and goes. It's supposed to be like 2 stage doors sliding open so we can make way for the actual film. So you don't pay very much attention to it the first time. You're just like, oh, that's a cool drawing or whatever. But it's actually the entire film from the time that their parents are murdered by the daughter to the time they get to Sweden and are amongst the Harga. Like everything that happens is illustrated in that drawing. And the sun is in that drawing. That smile was very much like the smile on the sun in that illustration. I didn't pick up on that before. Very cool.
We also see another tapestry later in the film. I think it's around the time that Connie and Simon or somebody asks about the bear in the cage. And
that was Simon.
Yeah, okay, I thought so. And
she says, "What's this?" Connie says, "What's this over here?" And Ingmar goes, "We can check it out."
Yeah, and that tapestry shows everything that happens between Christian and Maya. You know what? I think we've been saying Maya the entire podcast episode, but I think it might be Maja.
I said Maja once, and I thought maybe that was how it was supposed to be pronounced because it's Maja, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think her name is Maja, not Maya.
But I think they actually say it both ways in the film, so I'm not sure, but you guys know who we're talking about.
The redhead girl.
Yes.
The redhead girl that Christian bangs out in the temple because he's under the influence of crazy drugs.
But yeah, so that tapestry also gives us a lot of foreshadowing. We also have murals inside of the sleeping quarters.
Lots of them.
So many. And they show you a ton of stuff. One of them is, if I remember correctly, where Dani sleeps, you see a mural of the May Queen. Where Christian stands, you see a mural of a bear burning.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other things in there as well. I mean, the walls are covered.
And like, that's just one example of how they are pretty open about what goes on those grounds, specifically to outsiders. Even when they first get there, there's a bunch of girls who are hand in hand doing this dance. It's like almost like it's not necessarily a dance, but they're like running around the field and making these sounds like, and they're hand in hand in this long trail of girls. And I think Simon asks, what are they doing? What game are they playing? And Ingmar tells him it's called Skin the Fool.
Mm-hmm.
When Mark finally is killed, they skin him alive.
And somebody wears his skin like a costume.
Right. And then later on in the film, when they put him in the temple to be burned, they've removed his skeleton and all of his insides and stuff and stuffed him with straw, but he's wearing a jester's cap as if to say he's the fool. So when they were playing the game Skin the Fool, like they weren't just, it was basically like London Bridges. It was like, it's a kid's song, but it's actually kind of dark.
Yeah.
We didn't actually talk about how Josh died. Everybody in this movie died in such a horrible way. Like, it's like, think of the worst ways to die. Like, that's how they died. Josh was actually pretty confused by a lot of things that were going on. But because, and I picked up on this, because he's so intelligent and he picks up on things that require you to kind of do your research and actually put things together, he starts to notice patterns about the way that the Harga live, and it starts to make him feel uneasy. And so one of the last things that he does is he's in the temple with one of the elders, and they're telling him about this book called the Ruby Rodder. And essentially it is a book that is written, it's a never ending, like they have a bunch of these books. Like every single time there's a new oracle, if you will, they get a new book, and the child who illustrates it is a product of inbreeding. And their explanation for that is because he is disabled from being conceived in an inbred environment, he is somehow unclouded by regular thoughts or experience. So it leaves him open to be able to create what he would call his translation of how they're supposed to do things. And then the elders take those books that he's like painted on and things like that, and they essentially interpret what he has written, if you will, on the pages. It's a very strange kind of way to do things. But when the elder is explaining this to Josh, he kind of looks at him a little weird when the elder tells him the children that we use to create these, they're all products of inbreeding. And he says it so calmly, like, this is just what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So then Josh is like, can I take a picture of this? And the elder gets really upset. He's like, absolutely not. Like, no, they don't want anybody knowing anything about what goes on here. And so at the table, while they're eating, I guess, dinner or something, you can see that Josh is like really in thought.
Yeah, he's trying to process.
He's got his book. He's like flipping through the pages because a lot of those symbols and runes and stuff, he can read them. He actually knows what they mean. And we noticed a lot of them when we were looking at this film again. So we looked up some of them and they all mean something. They're not just decorations or weird symbols that they just made up for the film. Every one of those runes, whether it's placed on the tunic that Christian is wearing, whether it's placed on any of the dresses that the other girls are wearing, even the tunic that Dani is wearing right before the maypole dance, all those runes mean something. And so Josh is able to interpret what some of it says, not all of it, but some of it. And it starts to give him a very strange feeling. And so when he is told he can't take pictures of that book, it makes him feel like that's because they're hiding something. And so he is deep in thought at the table. He goes to bed that night. He's still deep in thought. And so he decides he's going to get to the bottom of it. And we know he's about to get up at some point during that night because he doesn't take his shoes off. The camera actually pans down at his feet. Like he goes to bed with his shoes on. And so eventually he gets up and he goes into that temple where he's not supposed to be.
And they know he's there.
They know he's there. I don't know how he doesn't know that because it's not pitch black out there. They're in Sweden. It's the midnight sun, so it gets dark for a little bit, but it never gets completely dark, like midnight dark. And then before you know it, the sun's out again. And so when he leaves, it's still kind of like light out. And I don't know what made him think he was going to be able to go in that temple and nobody was going to notice him. But he goes in there and like an idiot, he like opens the book and starts taking pictures of the pages. And I guess to him, he was going to get to the bottom of it one way or the other. And so he sees somebody behind him in the reflection of the window.
And he assumes that it's Mark.
Right. He thinks it's Mark because it looks kind of like Mark. But as he gets closer, he realizes this is not Mark. This guy doesn't have any pants or underwear on. And he just doesn't look like Mark now that I'm getting a good look at him. And before you know it, the same hammer that they use to split that old man's face when he jumped off the cliff and didn't die right away is the same hammer they use to bust Josh right upside his head. And I mean, they hit him hard with that thing. He goes down like a sack of rocks. He starts moaning uncontrollably.
Yeah, but he doesn't die.
He doesn't die. He's like, I would honestly say he was probably on the verge of death. He probably had a heck of a concussion. When they pull him away, there's a huge pool of blood where his head was. But before they pull him away, the person that's looking down at him is wearing Mark's face as a mask. I don't know if anything that we've said today has made you feel like you do want to watch this or you don't. But that scene in particular, I was just like, okay, this is not just a horror movie anymore. Like they're trying to find every single way to creep you out when you see this. And the thing is, it's not just stupid jump scares and things like that. Everything has a meaning behind it. And so, yeah. Later on, when Christian is like running around naked, trying to figure out what to do now that he just had sex with Maja and he's completely vulnerable, he runs back to the only place that he recognized. And in the dirt, he can see Josh's foot sticking up out of the dirt. They buried him, probably alive, and they put a mark on his foot. I didn't know what that mark meant, so we looked it up. And essentially, it means intellect and knowledge which is actually kind of funny because the one thing that he was known for is the one thing that got him killed.
Mm-hmm.
It's very crazy. And like it almost happens with everybody. Like Josh was killed because of his intellect. Mark was killed because of his lack of respect for the community.
I mean, Mark's name itself is a bit of foreshadowing because, I mean, what does it mean to mark something?
Right, or to be a mark.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, everybody who was killed in this wasn't just killed randomly for no reason. And so that's essentially how that movie ends, with her smiling after all that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I love this movie so much because every time we watch it, I just find more and more things about it. It's just there's so many hidden things in the film. So
You know what I think is interesting? So, Dani is now part of the community. If Maja is actually pregnant with Christian's child, that means Dani is going to raise that baby.
yeah. And I wonder how she's going to feel. I mean, that's always been the biggest question for me, is that what happens when those drugs wear off and she realizes where she is and who she's around, and everybody she's known, with the exception of Pele, they're all dead. And she was basically like an accessory to all that. When Maja has that baby and it's Christian's baby, and I mean, obviously, Dani's going to know that that's technically Christian's child. Like, she's going to be the one raising it. They need to figure out a way to continue this story. It doesn't have to be called Midsommar 2, but there has got to be, I need answers. Like, I need answers. What happens to Dani after those drugs wear off? Like,
Hey, you know what? One thing we didn't talk about is how the name Aster actually means to burn.
huh. Interesting. I'm telling you guys, this movie is full of stuff like this. All right, people. So we've talked a lot about this film, which I knew we would. It's one of my favorite films. And every time we watch it, we figure out something else. And that, to me, is a sign of a great horror film. I mean, obviously, if you're not in the mood for something as psychological as this and you just want like a nice popcorn horror film, this isn't it.
No.
It's not it. And I like the two films that Ari Aster did because they're both like that. But if you're...
Well, these two films. You mean Hereditary and Midsommar?
Yes, these two films. Yeah. If you're not interested in that, then yeah, don't watch this movie. But when I can talk about a movie over and over again, like leaves a lasting impression on me, that's when I give a film a really good grade. So what are we actually going to rate this film? I feel like it's obvious.
Oh, it is definitely a 5. There's so much about this movie that I love. We could probably do a second episode and still not cover everything.
Yeah, like there's so much to this film. It became one of my favorite films shortly after seeing it that first time. I was just like, that was one of the best horror films I've ever seen. Like, that did things that I've never seen done in any other film. So I would agree. 5 cookies. Absolutely delicious. Dark, disturbing, beautifully written, beautifully acted. If you haven't seen it, please go check it out. That's going to do it, right? We have done enough talking. Like, we have covered as much as we can cover in this spot. So yes, 5 cookies. That's going to wrap it up for us. We want to thank all of you for digging into this one with us. Make sure to head over to the Chocolate Chip Horror Substack. Read all about the fruit and cheese plate. You want to make your own, get inspired by that. While you're at it, head over to our official Etsy store. That's etsy.com/shop/chocolate chip horror. Grab one of our newest cookie tins, the Terror Bite collection, filled with custom vinyl stickers and magnetic bookmarks, all drawn, printed, laminated, and die cut by me, and complete with a one-of-a-kind cookie lid that was designed, hand-sculpted, and colored by the Queen of Harpies herself. I love those things. Like, the lids on the cookie tins are absolutely amazing.
They're so fun.
They're great. It's just perfect work. Very proud of those collectibles, and we know that you're going to love them too, but you got to be quick because we only have 10 of each collection. So they do sell out. Don't dawdle. Go full throttle. Get one while you still can. Also, make sure to visit us in the digital graveyard. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. You can view our artwork, see all the things that we're going to be doing. Like, subscribe. I almost forgot. We're actually going to be vendors for the All Hallows Flea Punk Rock Flea Market in Manheim, Pennsylvania on September 19th and 20th. It'll be the first vendor event that we do as Chocolate Chip Horror. And we'll be there with cookie tins to sell. We'll be there with sticker sheets. So if you're in the area or you don't mind making the trip, you could drop by our booth, meet us in person, say hi, take pics with us. You can even join our mailing list if you want to. But that's where we're going to be in September. We cannot wait for that. So again, that's going to do it. What did you think of Midsommar? Did you think it was a beautiful folk horror film? Or did you just feel like it was a modern day carbon copy of The Wicker Man? Like, what are your thoughts? Would you survive something like that? What would you have done? Would you be part of the Harga? What do you think is going to happen to Dani now that she's a part of the Harga? Let us know. We want to know all your takes and all your hot takes. So, until next crime, I'm the Wolfman Anthony.
And I'm the Queen of Harpies, Andrea.
Now get out of our graveyard.